Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That can only mean one thing: live after hours with your favorite RCDD. And you know that's me. Welcome to After Hours with Chuck Bowser, RCD Bixie Technician, the show where we answer the tough questions submitted by installers, estimators, project managers, and everybody else. Let's start off with what are you drinking tonight? Chuck is drinking. Listen to this. Chuck is drinking Cola Zevia with a throat lozenge in it. Kaylin's in the house with a throat lozenge in it because I was teaching today. So I need a little bit for my throat going on. So there you go. So put in the chat box, what are you drinking? What are you drinking? And also, we got to do the acronym challenge. So the acronym challenge, Shotzi's in the house. He's drinking a Diet Dr. Pepper as usual. Oh, I just discovered it. Look at that. Nice. I didn't know I could do that. Oh, the things you learn. The things you learn. So Shotzi's in the house. Shotzi is one of my longest supporters. He's been supporting this show for, what, 3 years now, Shotzi? 4 years now? Almost from day one. He's my longest, bestest supporter of the show. So I want to talk about something different tonight. Instead of doing questions, I'm getting tired of hearing the age-old debate: copper's dead, fiber, copper's dead, fiber. People who say that are either being dishonest with themselves or they're totally clueless. So tonight I want to talk about that. I'm gonna make a case for copper. I'm gonna make a case for fiber, and then I'm gonna see what do the numbers say for as far as longevity and return on investment. And then I'm gonna talk about maybe the best of both worlds. So I got a lot of stuff to cover. I'm hoping I can get it done within 30 minutes. So again, the reason I picked this topic today because I see it in all over social media. Copper's dead, and you know, here's the thing. Here's why I really want to cover this. This show is going to be beneficial to not just installers or technicians, but also project managers and even estimators. Because as an installer, you need to know what's going to be coming down the pike so you can get the right skill sets for it. Because if you keep doing the same thing, having the same skills, you're not going to accelerate in this industry. Think about the typewriter repairman who thought, "Oh, this computer thing, it's a fad, it's going away." Yeah, where are they now? Let me ask you this. Fort Wayne's in the house. Hello, Fort Wayne. Let me ask you this. Do you know of anybody today who's a typewriter repairman? Probably not, right? So as installers, it's going to be critical that you know that. And then as project managers and even estimators, you need to know what's coming down the pike so you can choose the best solution for the customers. And you can stay current with them by keeping your skill sets up for as far as design practices. And business owners need to know this because it's going to help them plan for future demands. So again, like I said, we're going to cover the pros and cons of copper and pros and cons of fiber. We're talking about return costs, cost on investment, all that fun stuff. So let's start off with, first off, the case for copper. The case for copper, right? Like it or not, copper cabling overall is cheaper than fiber optic cabling. You know, the connectors, depending on what you get, they're anywhere from a couple, $3-4 to $7-8, depending on what you get. Fiber optic connectors, you're looking at 12, 15, $20 a connector, right? What's the acronym? I forgot the acronym, buddy. I forgot it. Yes. And copper cable, I didn't actually do the pricing to see if copper was cheaper than fiber, but I know this. Copper is easier to terminate because you don't need fusion splicers, you don't need precision cleaving tools, you don't need VFLs. And another advantage to copper is most ICT professionals have years of experience working with copper. So it's going to be a lot of familiarity with it. There's a lot of people I see in our industry that they know copper, but they don't know fiber, and they want to learn more about fiber. So almost everybody's in this industry at least knows copper. Not everybody knows fiber, but at least everybody knows copper. Another advantage you have with copper if you start talking about power over Ethernet. Now, power over Ethernet, we're talking about wireless access points. We're talking about industrial sensors. We're talking about, cameras, wireless access points, all that stuff. Internet of Things. We all have heard of it. A lot of it uses PoE, and you can easily do a PoE device all the way up to 295 feet or 328 feet for channel. In some scenarios, depending on the type of cable you pick, you can go past that, depending whether or not you want to stay current with the ANSI standards or the IEEE standards. So in some cases, you can actually go past that over copper cabling. And putting power over copper for power over Ethernet reduces the need for having separate power cablings in some scenarios. So you don't have to hire an electrician to put in electrical receptacle next to which your low voltage drop. And power over Ethernet, we can do 15 watt, 30 watt, 60 watt, 90 watt, 100 watt, and there's a lot of devices that can be run off that. Copper is going to still be, and I think the best, perfect for short distance applications like local area networks, offices, maybe even some industrial environments because of that 100-meter reach. It can go up to that full 328 feet. It works well with commercial buildings. Inspectors are familiar with it, so they're not going to give you as much harassment with it. And especially when you start talking about industrial environments, copper handles vibration better than fiber. It just does. It does. It's less likely to fail because of vibrations in like industrial environments. And patch cable flexibility, it's easy to get copper patch cables. I don't know, you've Graybar, Annixter, CSE, Amazon, you can get copper patch cables pretty easy anywhere. Fiber patch cords sometimes can be a little more hard to get sometimes. Let me ask you this. Are you still installing copper or fiber? Tell me in the chat box. Are you still installing copper or fiber, and why or why not? Let me know in the chat box which are you doing. And then follow that up with, if you had to look at the overall installs, what percentage would you say are copper installs, and what percentage would you say would be fiber installs? Let me know. Let me know in the chat box. Moving on to let's talk about the case for fiber. There's no arguing the fact that we got networks that are copper is good for 1 gig, 2.5 gig, 5 gig, even in some cases 10 gig. Fiber can easily support 10 gig, 40 gig, 100 gig, and even way beyond some of the things that copper can even do. You know, the good thing about fiber is it eliminates bottlenecks. And it does that because, it's great for, that's why you'll see a lot of times fiber used in data centers, fiber used for fiber optic backbones. And there's no doubt, there's no denying it. Fiber is growing by leaps and bounds. And if you want to talk about future proofing, fiber, while it's not as cheap as copper for putting in installs, it's going to have a longer life cycle. They say the average life cycle of a structured cable plant is 7 to 10 years, and that's not because of the cable; it's because of the bandwidth requirements and everything needing to be upgraded. So computers come out and the copper cable in the system can no longer handle those 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 um those high bandwidths. Fiber at minimum 20 years a life cycle with minimal to no performance degradation. I mean, it's going to last. It's in fact single mode fiber. We don't know what is the maximum bandwidth that we can put across that cable. So there's nothing better future proof than a cable that can handle everything we have today and everything we have tomorrow because we don't know what it is. Fiber will also support 5G. It'll also support more smart buildings, and even like I said, like I mentioned before, the high speed backbones. And there is, like I said, fiber is gaining ground. It absolutely is gaining ground. There's more and more people who are learning how to do fiber. There's more and more organizations teaching fiber. There's more and more electronics manufacturers who are making fiber optic connection devices. and that is it's expanding. And when you talk about fiber, you can't you can't argue the fact that fiber is more reliable for as far as interference from EMI. You know, in fact, it's immune to it. It is absolutely immune to EMI, unlike copper is. And especially you start talking about industrial environments, or here's one, and I can't remember the acronym off the top of my head, but there is a type of fiber that they put inside of electrical transmission lines to go long distances. You can't do that with a Cat 6 cable. It won't do the distance, and it can't be that close to electrical noise. So fiber cable is more reliable and it's also more secure than copper because with copper, some systems like analog systems, you could literally just take a probe, push the button, and hold it right next to the cable and listen to the conversation. You can't do that with fiber. It's photons. You got to change it over to electrons, and it's a lot harder. It's way more secure to eavesdrop and to try to penetrate it. So that's why fiber is going to be a better solution for as far as security. And fiber is really well suited for high temperature and high humidity environments. It truly is. Copper cabling, high temperature, you have more insertion loss. Right? High humidity, electrons are lazy. They're going to go towards the path of least resistance. And if a cable gets wet because of a whole bunch of humidity in the air, that could cause insertion as well. Now, let's talk about what do the numbers actually say. Let's talk about installation versus long-term costs, right? So basically, the upfront cost to install it versus the long-term savings. Copper, right out of the gate, it's cheaper upfront to install, right? You don't the staff that you can hire to do copper cabling is not going to be the same hourly rate as somebody who does fiber, right? Somebody can do fiber can easily do copper, but the copper skill set, a lot of times that's going to be a cheaper labor rate to do that for new installs. Fiber over time is going to save you money because, like we talked about earlier, it's easily expandable. It has very low power consumption and it lasts a lot longer. It lasts, like I said before, up to 20 years. So comparing copper to fiber in different types of environments and projects, fiber's going to use less pathway space than copper will. And that's a consideration you need to think about. When you, the life cycle considerations, when you talk about copper and fiber, how does each technology really last? Fiber can last, like I said, over 20 years. Copper is not going to go as much. And if you have a harsh environment, your copper is going to last even less. So some best practices that PMs and estimators really should factor in is what I call the total cost of ownership. The total cost of ownership. Not just how much it costs for the material today, not how much it costs for the labor today, but spread that cost over the lifespan of that system. So even though copper is cheaper to install, it's only going to last that 7 to 10 years before the copper bandwidth can no longer handle the processors that are out there today. Fiber, again, single mode, it literally is unlimited in bandwidth because we don't know how much bandwidth it can handle. So if you take the cost of putting in fiber and you spread that over 20 years, it will become cheaper over total cost of ownership. Now, here's the thing. Customers are coming in a couple of different varieties, right? They can be the cost conscious or the cheap customers, and there's the early adopters who like to spend money out there. And there's a place for every type of contractor out there, every type of installer out there. New people getting into having their own low voltage business, they end up working for a lot of the cost conscious customers because they haven't figured out or know where to contact the bigger customers, the customers who want to spend the money because they don't mind paying extra for being leading edge technology. So you really got to be good and you have to be skilled at discussing the customer's needs versus their budget. Right. They need, and this is a good way to talk them into going fiber if that's the way you want to go. Yes, fiber may cost you more initially. And a good thing to do is to do a price comparison ahead of time. Know how much is, if they know they want to do X amount of drops, okay, how much, here's the copper solution price, here's the fiber solution price. They'll see that the fiber is more expensive, but then when you break it down, okay, 10 years for the copper, you got to replace it to go to the next level, which we don't know what it is yet. Fiber, it's going to be good for 20 years. That's an eye opener. That's an eye opener. And they'll see that basically fiber has saved them money over the long term. Again, the problem is getting them there. Getting them there. I'll give you an example. I did a. I was a manager for a large company. We had a project down in Miami where we're doing a school, and they put hubs in each of the classrooms, and they ran six 4-pair category rated cables to each of the classrooms, and they attached conduit to the outside of the building to get to all these. And they realized after we finished the project that it was done wrong. They used inside plant cable, not outside plant cable. And these were mounted outside, and they're exposed to the environment, so they really should have been outside plant rated cabling. So the customer was obviously mad at that, and so they asked us, "What can we do to fix this?" Now, keeping in mind that this is going to be a rework, and so we were going to be funding all of this. The customer wasn't going to be paying for anything. The customer paid for a solution. We said this would work, and we found out that it wouldn't work because of they picked the wrong type of copper cabling. So I priced in the copper cabling, the replacement with the outside plant cable, and I looked at the outside diameter of the outside plant cabling. I quickly realized that, in case you don't know this, outside plant copper cable is larger than inside plant copper cable. And if I replaced all that with outside plant cable, the conduit was no longer large enough. We were going to be exceeding the 40% fill ratios. So now we're not looking at just replacing copper cable to every classroom, but we're also looking at replacing the conduit to every classroom. That's a double whammy, a double whammy. So I came up with the idea, and I said to the customer, look, how about instead of using hubs that are using copper connectivity, why don't we switch it over to fiber? You'll get more bandwidth. And they immediately jumped off that, yes, we want to do that. But is you going to charge us extra to go with the fiber? And I checked with my boss, and he said, go ahead and move forward with it. I'm like, okay, here's the thing. We did the fiber for free because we knew that it would cost us 1/3 the cost of having replaced the copper with outside plant copper and the conduit. So it was way cheaper for us. We told them, look, we'll do the fiber. All you got to do is just upgrade your switches for each of the classroom to one that's fiber capable. They were easily agreed to that, and we got away with literally only taking about a $50,000 hit instead of a $150,000 hit, because there was a lot of conduit and a lot of outside plant that would need to be replaced. So let me tell you that in the chat box, tell me if you've ever had a scenario where you've had fiber ultimately save you money. And there's other things too. I mean, you got air blown fiber that can easily go for, you can easily put fiber in or take it back out and replace it with other fibers. This fiber has a lot more ability to grow. Copper, you can be taking it out and having to replace it. So the true scenario is, why not the best of both worlds? The best of both worlds, right? So instead, when you start talking about copper to the desktop, but then fiber optic for the backbones, that way you're not buying a fiber NIC card for every single user on the network. So I see the Beard of Knowledge is in here today. Beard of Knowledge, tell me, how much is a fiber NIC card for just a workstation? How much is a fiber NIC card for just a workstation? I'm pretty sure you probably know that off the top of your head. I don't shop those very often because you'd have to buy one of those for everyone. Ed, the old tech guy's in the house. He says level 3 communications was one of the largest in their day to use air-blown fiber. Exactly. New. Obviously, he's asking me new or used. New. How much is a new fiber NIC card for a workstation? Brand new. Just a generic run-of-the-mill. So Brent's here saying he ran fiber to set another data center close to about 100 Cat6 cables instead of pulling all those. So fiber will save you for that. It will absolutely save you for that. And as I mentioned, as Ed said, about the air-blown fiber, it's going to be really easy for retrofits. And a lot of times, even though it's not required by standards, a lot of times, especially inside of office buildings, we install interduct. So the interduct, now you've got a pathway for the future fiber as well. So Kalen is saying $70. Eddie Old Tech Guy says a fiber NIC card costs about $45. So, but here's the thing: most workstations, correct me if I'm wrong, my computer guys on the thing here, most workstations come with a copper NIC card with no extra additional cost. Am I correct there? So if you want fiber, that's an additional $45 per workstation times the number of workstations. That adds up pretty quickly. That adds up pretty quickly. Right. So like I said, the workstations already come with the copper NIC cards already done with them. So why not copper from the workstation to the telecom room, fiber optic for the backbone? Um, I've done a lot of jobs for the federal government where they would do fiber to the desktop along with copper to the desktop. And even the federal government, in most scenarios back then, because it's changed since I've done it, most scenarios back then, they would leave the fiber dark because even they didn't have enough money for fiber NIC cards for every workstation. Unless there was an overdriving need for security. If you're talking about like a secure location where they want less people being able to tap, then they would spend the extra money for the fiber. Now, the key is when you're doing a hybrid scenario, you got to plan it properly to make sure that you avoid bottlenecks. Make sure that there's enough strands of fiber to handle all of the networks. Beer knowledge, yes, I've already covered it. I already said the fiber is more secure. Absolutely. It cannot easily wiretap it. I mentioned earlier with copper, all you got to do with some systems is just literally take a probe, push the button, and hold it next to the cable, and you can hear the entire conversation. A lot of people don't know that. So, so where the technology is going to fit, the best application, again, fiber for the backhaul. Fiber is really great at long distances, at data centers, in campuses, and as Ed, the old tech guy who's in here tonight, will tell you, ISPs. That's where copper kind of stubs its foot. Copper for the workstation and everything, it's gonna be great there. But the key is, where is the industry going? Where is the industry going? Because I'm telling you right now, I hear people say, well, Cat 5e is it's gonna be around forever. They used to say the same thing about Cat 3. They used to say the same thing about POTS cabling. But there's no doubt, I think with Moore's Law, where the capacity of a chip doubles every 18 months or something like that, just look at where we were 5 years ago compared to today, for as far as devices and compared to computers and bandwidth and all of the different devices that are going on in the network. Yes, some of them are going to be running over copper. You're not going to run if you're putting in a Nest thermostat system, you're really not going to run fiber to that. And then Ed, the old tech guy, one of his favorite things he likes to talk about is AI and automation. How is that going to impact all of these networks? If somebody says that they know how AI is going to impact network infrastructure, the vast majority of them are clueless. Because especially when you're talking to engineers like my age. I'm not a typical person who's my age, because I'm an early adopter of technology. I use AI a lot for lots of things, for the podcast and for everything. And there's some people who just they can't even spell AI, much less know how to use AI. And when you start, so you can start doing more things with AI. What additional devices that can be putting on the network? What kind of a bandwidth strain is that going to put on the network? And will the high performance copper cable in Cat 6A, Cat 8, is it going to be able to handle that? Cat 8 can do 40 gig, but not the full 295 feet. Now, if you're in a house, okay, that's fine. You're going to be fine for most houses. And Cat 8's really designed for data centers. But I see TikTok videos, I see Instagram videos of people putting Cat 8 in their house. I get it. I understand why. Because if you're going to invest putting cable in a residential scenario, it's a lot harder than doing commercial installs. Why not go with the best that you can afford so it lasts longer? But again, with AI, we don't know how that's going to affect the bandwidth monster that chews up everything that we need. Ed, the old tech guy in TikTok says the interesting thing about fiber is it does not conduct electricity. So in a cell tower, they love it. Yes, they absolutely do. The old tech guy. And I was just mentioning earlier that there's a type of fiber, and I can't remember the acronym for it. I think it's AP something, where they put fiber optic cabling in electrical distribution cables, transmission power line cables. because you can easily go across long distances that way, right? So my question is, do we think, and I want you to put this in the chat box, do you think copper is going to be around for 10 years? Tell me in the chat box. Do you think copper is going to be around in 10 years? And here's why I ask this question. Because there was an interesting article, and I mentioned this on the live streams before. There was an interesting article where the was it AT&T? I think it was AT&T. AT&T is mandated by the FCC to carry a certain amount of analog phone lines. Well, AT&T sought permission to get rid of that because people are migrating over to using cellular phones as their primary phones. People are using phones over their cable TV network. So the traditional analog phone line coming from, from a central office to your home, it's going away. It's going away. Now, the problem we're going to run into is, especially with the cellular side, is there's only a limited number of frequencies. Until you come up with encoding schemes where you can do multiple transmissions off of different types of the same frequency, but have do multiple bandwidth across that. There's only a limited number of frequencies. The Bearded Knowledge says, but we're going to be pushing frequencies to push more bandwidth through. Exactly. That's what I was just kind of saying. Ed, the old tech guy, says Cat 6 is fine as long as you run it in a way that can be easily rerun or replaced. And that's where. So in commercial office, that's not hard. I mean, you drop tile ceilings in most places, good to go. Residential, that's going to be a little bit harder to do because most houses have have locked tile ceilings, have drywall ceilings. So, you got to think about it ahead of time. If you're having a house built for you, why not have them run either conduit, which is going to be expensive, or maybe interduct, that could be expensive. And I see a lot of people like to use what's called Smurf tube, and they'll just run it back to the main point of penetration. That way, if they want to switch out from Cat 6 to Cat 8, they can. Just keep in mind, there's different outside diameters between Cat 6, Cat 6A, and Cat 8. So keep that in mind. I have a list of 147 pro tips on my website, and pro tip number 12 on my website is always leave a pull string. Always leave a pull string, because you never know. You never know. So even if you put cable in, put a pull string behind it. If you pull your cable out, bring pull string in. So that way, when you go to new stuff, you can always put it in there, right? So let me see. Howard here saying, hello, Chuck. The only thing I can think of is installing a 12-strand multi-mode instead of a 6-strand, even though initially they needed 2 strands. I only carry Cat 6. I made the move from having Cat 5 to carry Cat 6 over a year ago, having to use Cat 7, Cat 8, but I've used Game Changer. Yes. So, I'm going to give you a tip. And I don't share this pro tip very often. I'm going to give you a pro tip as an installer, as a MSP, as a low voltage cable company, on how you can exceed your customers' expectations easily and make them happy. Because a happy customer is going to be a customer that's going to be around a long time. If a customer hires you to pull a 6-strand of fiber between 2 points, point A and point B, 6-strand of fiber, okay? And you win the project, why not price in a 12-strand? Here's the thing. The amount of labor it takes to pull a 6-strand versus the amount of labor it takes to pull a 12-strand is exactly the same. The only difference you're going to have or run into is the cost of termination and testing. So what you do is, if they want a 6-strand, pull a 12-strand a day, only terminate 6 strands on each side, test them. And then when they realize that they didn't have enough bandwidth and they want you to pull more, you say, okay, I can do that for this dollar value, which is going to be significantly cheaper than having to pull another 12-strand. And you will be, the customer's like, hey, you were really looking out for us, right? Car electricians hate my pull strings. Hello, are you a wimp or something? Just pull fresh. Yeah. Don't get me going about electricians versus low voltage. There's a whole kind of thing there. So yeah. Oh, hey, by the way, don't forget, Let's Talk Cabling t-shirt stuff. Make sure you buy the merch. You can go to Amazon. Go to Amazon, type in Let's Talk Cabling t-shirts, and you will find I got Let's Talk Cabling shirts, Wire Monkey shirts, estimating shirts. I've got baseball shirts, Women's t-shirts, tank tops, all kinds of stuff. Make sure you go visit that page, right? All right, so look, we are at 6:31. Did I have anything else on my list here to do? My final thoughts. I forgot that section. So here's my final shots. Amazon.com. Here's my final thoughts. Copper's not dead. It's not dead. I would even say it's on life support, but it's got pneumonia. Does that make sense? It's got pneumonia, but it's not on life support yet. Fiber is gaining ground and it's gaining ground quickly. There's still a lot of types of jobs out there that copper excels at over fiber. And until we figure out how to get past that hurdle, I think we'll always been doing copper. I mean, look at it this way: how many POTS cabling installs are still out there, firing up and powering fax machines and analog phone lines and fire alarm backup circuits and stuff like that? There's still that kind of stuff out there. I think hybrids are going to be the best solution. The best thing I could say is when you see somebody saying copper's dead, encourage conversation and go to industry forums and talk about it because it's not dead. Copper's not dead. It's going to be around. If you want to be the most successful technician in this industry right now, my suggestion to you is get copper certified, get fiber certified. You'll never have too many skills. Never have too many skills. So I hope this all kind of made sense. I don't know. I just got thinking about it last night when I was doing something else. And I was like, I'm sick and tired of the whole copper's dead scenario. Usually the people who say copper's dead are I hate to say this because it makes me sound like a boomer, the young whippersnappers. The young whippersnappers who don't realize all the things that copper's being used for, right? Yeah. So shout out to saying ADSS is fiber in transmission lines. Yes, exactly. All right, everybody. I appreciate everybody coming on tonight. Remember, until next time, knowledge is power.